What's going on, guys? This video is going to be all about wiring up the dump trailer. I'm going to try and be as inclusive as I can from start to finish without boring you guys to death. Got a couple little short videos of me talking about different components that I use and stuff. I know some of that's boring sometimes, but I'm putting it all in. I just feel like it might help some people since I've done this job so many times on other trailers. You'll see me change outfits a couple of times through the video just because the things in the video took place over a couple of different days at work, and I didn't really stop to talk about what I was doing each day. So if you see me go from a brown shirt to a blue shirt or whatever in the videos, it's just because those things happened on different days. And hopefully I edit it in a way that makes sense to you from start to finish, because like I said, the videos don't really line up, but I wanted to put them in an order so that you could kind of see how the trailer got wired from front to back, what I did as far as doing conduit and different gauge wiring, different type of wiring, and different components and stuff. Alright guys, I'm back to work on the dump trailer. It is a cold December morning. I'm going to try and weld in this conduit so I can start running the wiring, and I have a couple other little bits of welding and grinding to do that I mentioned earlier. So see how much we can get done before it gets dark. Alright, I'm getting ready to wire up this trailer or work on the wiring. I wanted to talk about some stuff that I'm using real quick. I use these on all my trailers, every single one of them. Anytime I do any work to them, I put one of these boxes in. That's what I do. So these boxes are really cool. They come with a handful of different rubber fittings. So you have some that are solid. They have these cutouts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, some of them have even more, some of them have less. They have these cutouts, you can block them off with rubber plugs, or you can use ones with, they have a couple different size holes in them for big or small holes. And that keeps everything water resistant, it keeps water out of this. So these are really nice to keep all your wiring out of the water. They keep your connections really easy if you ever want to add something. I'm going to wire up brakes on this trailer, so this is a trailer breakaway switch. So this gives you, you're going to run a small one, or you can take one of these and just poke it with a screwdriver and slide that wire through, which keeps all your little connections waterproof. And if I ever need to, I have a habit of breaking these off for some reason. And if I ever want to change that out, I don't have to like splice it. I can just come down here, unscrew the two wires that it taps into, and be good as new. So what I usually use this stuff. This is like Hopkins brand. You can buy it at Tractor Supply or a lot of places. It's labeled. I know my wires at this point around, but If it's 2 a.m. and you're bleary from loss of sleep, you're on the side of the road with a wiring problem, it's nice to be reminded. So this is the Hopkins brand. It has a single ground, your parking lights and your left and right turn on it all together with 4 wires. It's called 4 flat wire. That's nice. It's quality wire. It's oxygen-free copper. But for this trailer, I'm using this wiring, which is from Harbor Freight. I'm going to cut this connector off, and I'll run this in, and then we'll put our terminals on and hook it up. So this wiring here, the reason that I like these, I'm sure it's copper clad aluminum, which I'm using. I'll be running copper wire for the brakes on this, and the only thing this will be running is my LED running lights in the back, my brake stop tail turn, so they're not going to carry any current. It's not a big deal. And all my connections are going to be sealed, so I'm not real worried about corrosion. But the reason I like these is count your wires. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires. You see your extra wire is red. That is an extra parking light wire. And that is so when you run your wires down the trailer, you can run your stop light to each side, and then you would split this. So when you get down to the end, you can see how it's already pre-split, and your yellow goes with your red. So this will go to one stop tail turn, and you have both your parking light and your stop light on this one, and this will have your parking light and your stop light on the other. If you didn't do this, you would have to daisy chain those lights together to get parking lights to work on both of them. I personally wire ground to all of my trailers, so when I wire one where I'm running wiring down each side like this, I go ahead and run this ground with one side, and I'll tap into this right here and buy 18 gauge wiring and run a second ground on that side so that I can ground out my light fixture. To me, that just prevents any problems, because ground into the frame on trailers is fraught with problems. Alright, I hope everybody can see this. I wanted to put this box somewhere, if I didn't mention this earlier, I wanted to put it somewhere where I could access these connections very easily, but still have this plug have enough slack to reach the coupler on my truck. If the camera gets bumped, it's because my dog is begging me to throw this for him. So, alright, I had to stop for a battery change there. My GoPro was blinking at me, but we're going to go with these pre-labeled colors and we will keep our fingers crossed that they are right. I know I've said in other videos that they have not been in the past, but this is a different brand that I've used before. We'll see. All right, I've got that guide there, and I know what color my wires are. So my red battery here, this is going to be the 12 volts hot lead, which they're saying will go to the black wire. So the one thing to remember when you're running these in, you've got 2 inlet terminals here, and they're probably going to get filled up on this one. So you want to go ahead and start with the ones that you need, because your wires are all going to have to run through them. Otherwise, if you wait until you're done, all your wires will be connected and they won't be through that hole. So let me just grab a grommet and I'll be right back. Okay, in case it wasn't clear what I was talking about, these inserts on these distribution blocks, they can take either a solid plug if you're not going to use it for anything, or they can take these ones with holes in them. And I've done so many of these, I just have a box of them in there, and they're all pretty much the same size, like not exact, but really close. So that one's perfect. So what I was saying is I want to go ahead and put these in. And you want to go ahead, these aren't a big deal because these unscrew completely and you can take them out, and that's actually what I like to do, is just go ahead and take them out, and that way we can put these in once all of our wires are in. But these are a big deal because if you don't run through your wires through them when you're doing it, then you cannot go back and do it without undoing these, and it's a pain in the butt, especially if you use ring terminals, which I use because they're more secure. All right, so as I take these off, I'll just go ahead and mention this. It pays to think ahead when you're doing this, because you really only want to take these nuts off once. So if you have multiple wires that need to go to the same terminal, you want to go ahead and do them all at once. That can get tricky sometimes if you're doing a really complicated trailer that has wires going all over the place, because if you leave the nut off while you're trying to figure out what else goes to it, the ring terminals on the wires have the tendency of popping off, especially while you're trying to route other wires inside these tiny little boxes. And I'm doing a really good job. That screw looks like it was not in fantastic shape when it left the factory, but I'm not doing any favors here. All right, one more screw here and we'll get to work on that. And off she comes. Okay, put that in a safe place. So I know that my only 12 volt wire on this is gonna be going to the power terminal. I don't have any other 12 volt draws on this because this feeds the battery, and the battery feeds all my other 12 volt sources on this particular project. So this particular terminal is an 8, a metric terminal. Not a huge fan of that, but it is what it is. So we have got our 12 volts to the battery. Give it a little tweak there. All right. 12 volts to the battery. Got it started on. And then you really want to kind of route the wire before you torque it down, because once you torque it, it's aimed the direction that it's aimed. So we'll route that. It's a big wire. It's like a 10 gauge. We'll route that up and around that box. All right, one of these other big wires is our black wire. That's going to be ground. It is not enough to ground these through the tongue. That's a terrible idea. I don't understand why people try and do that. Your white is always going to be your ground, and it looks like they kept that on this trailer as well. It's unfortunate because we have multiple grounds to connect, and it's all the way down here, which means we are going to run a bunch of wires through our box. That's no big deal though. We can deal with that. Okay. So this is our ground for the battery, which I'm going to run here through the top because it is a larger gauge wire. And it can be friends with the red here, which it looks like we have just enough room to tuck them both above that little screw hole. Okay. So I'm using black just because that's the universal color for ground, and that's what I had. I guess it'd be nice if we had white so that everything matched, but not a big deal. As long as you know. As long as you know what color you use, it's not a big deal. When you come around on this, you have your we could run these up from the bottom, and then you'd have just that many fewer terminals coming through the side. I don't hate that idea. That might work. Alright, so we have multiple grounds here because these are our grounds for our taillights, and I had decided to use 2. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment with that, but you can see why they make these terminal bolts nice and long, because in some cases you do end up putting quite a few ring terminals on them. And like I said, anytime you are stacking, you have to start thinking about your routing. All right, so the brakes will have to be grounded as well. They're going to have a brake control wire and a ground. Split some more of that. And this is where you run into a little bit of trouble with trying to pre-terminate things, because this is a really big connector and it may not fit through some of these, but it looks like we're going to get away with it. Alright. I don't know, might be better off swinging that down around. Connector is very large. I think this connector and the heat shrink I've got in there is just too big to let me get away with that. So, let's see if I can. Yeah, that works. Alright. So, as I've said before, the brakes don't matter for polarity. They just, come on, they're electromagnets. So, there's no real positive or negative. It's actually nice to have that big terminal on top to press down the other ones. Let's see, our other brake control wire. Brake power, almost universally going to be your blue wire, which is right here. We're going to run that through, try and squeeze it through there. Thankfully it fits. Okay, so I'm sure you're thinking, well, you go ahead and pull your blue and you've only got one brake power wire, but you don't, because these trailers use what's called a breakaway system. I don't think I've talked about that yet. So these trailers are required by law. Pretty much anything over, it varies state to state, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, required to have trailer brakes. Anything that has to have trailer brakes is required to have one of these breakaway systems. So this will bolt to the side of the trailer. It has a wire that has to go to your receiver. Common sense and the law dictate that this does not go to the same spot that your chains do. Belt and suspenders approach says you want it somewhere else. So if your trailer ever becomes, if your trailer comes off, your chains don't hold it, and this is connected to your truck, not your hitch, it'll pull this pin, which will connect the positive wires from the battery straight to the brake control wire, which will lock the brakes on your trailer. So I'm sure you've seen YouTube videos, if you haven't, they're out there, of people hitting the brakes on the interstate and their trailers popping up and passing them in the other lane. We don't want that. So on this particular, the way I have it set up, this wire here is already leading into the battery. This wire will go to our brake control, and I think we had decided to mount it here, so we will run that through the bottom. I'm going to grommet it. It will go to that terminal, and then we will run our wire to the brakes on top of that, which is through the grommet. Yes, right there. Okay. And it's tough when you're working with like 10 gauge wiring, because I like to use 10 and 12 gauge for the brake wires. They can draw a lot of current, and basically their performance is affected when you use smaller wire, because they're an electromagnet. They can draw a lot of amperage in panic braking or in heavy severe braking. So I like to use a thicker wire. Thicker wire necessitates these bigger terminals. Bigger terminals don't always like to play nice in these confined spaces of these boxes. Just is what it is. Now the only thing left here, we're gonna have to mount this, because this is our brake control. Sorry, I have to mount this brake controller. Excuse me, the breakaway switch, because it's flopping around. But we're gonna have to. These are our lighting connectors, and I am really hoping I can snake these through this existing grommet. The problem is, with every wire that passes through this grommet, it gets a little trickier, and it's cold out here, so this grommet's very stiff. We got it. And that's about as many wires as you can run through one of those grommets. All right. So, green wire is your tail lights. Boy, these are tight, tight, tight. All right. Okay. So our brown connector will go to the tail lights, because brown is always your tail lights here, even if they decided that green was for this thing. Boy, you know, it'd be nice if I could get that started on there, but it seems like it should work that way. But it's just not. Oh yeah, there we go. That felt right. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot that these... See, this is what I was saying. Now I got to take that back off, because I forgot that this... We use that split wiring harness that had a separate red wire for our parking lights on the driver's side of the trailer. So we will have 2 wires connected to that, which is fine. Maybe we can get this to start even easier. Oh, it looks like such a chump. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So I still look like a chump, but still look like a chump, but now the terminal's run. Alright, I'm back. It's getting real windy. This GoPro seems bad about picking up the wind. I just grabbed a hat to put on. The 2 wires we will have left are your green and yellow. Ooh, there we go. The yellow wire is going to be your left turn, so your driver's side, and your green wire will obviously be your passenger side, right side. Now, left-hand turn is yellow, so we find our left-hand turn on this wiring guide. It says it is going to red, and that's red coming off the trailer side, not this red wire we just put on. As you can see, this starts to get so confusing. Why we can't just agree on the same colors, I don't know. I just know that I bought a bunch of these boxes, and they never match up. Have the boxes been the same? I don't know. I don't remember, because I just don't deal with that side of the plug often enough. I set them up I wire them to whatever the box is. However, these wires come off the plug, and then for the service life, if you do it correctly the first time, for the service life of the trailer, you'll only be messing with this side. So the only wire left is our right hand turn green wire. Checking our color code, right hand turn is the brown wire for no reason at all. Like, why couldn't brown just go to brown? Doesn't matter, it doesn't. And I'm telling you, the first one of these I hooked up, I was like, oh cool, red goes to red, brown goes to brown, green goes to green, and nothing worked right, and I was gutted. I had stayed up late trying to finish it, and I couldn't believe it when I found out that the colors were different. Why? Makes no sense. It really doesn't make any sense. Alright. So these all need pushed up some. Yep, make sure they all clear. They do. Let's snug these down. That one we never touched. What's yellow? Yellow is auxiliary. Which I don't think that has a function on the plug, on your truck side of the plug from the factory. But you can set it up to trigger things on your trailer. Like, it'd be cool to set it up to trigger the dump bed on this, but of course you'd need multiple wires to do that. It's not really practical. And then we come back through. Let me put that. These wires might as well all get used to going in the right way, huh? They might as well. Boy. We may need some lubricant to squeeze that grommet into place. Alright. There's that. And that's going to get another section of split loom where it runs up there, but that'll be a project for another minute. Let's see. That terminal. Okay. Alright. We've got that started. I'm not sure there's really much point in cranking that down because that blue wire is not going to be clamped by this. It's just too small. But we'll tighten it down enough to keep it from going anywhere. I might. There's Charlie back again. I think we might loosen this a hair. We've got slack on this side. There we go. Just push that down out of the way. Nice and tight. And then, so what I've done before, if I had an entrance like this, is you can flip that little plastic piece over and then it will press down on these little wires, but that's not going to have any tension on it. Charlie is trying to eat the camera. That's not going to have any tension or anything because the breakaway box is going to be mounted on the trailer tongue right next to it. And I'm going to run some more skinny split loom right up to that. That's not going anywhere. Alright, we got one more of those. I'll have to get off my little mechanic stool to see the hole that goes in. Hi, Charlie. Hey, bud, I know, you don't get to play while Dad's working, huh? You don't get to play. And that is tragic. I'm just saying tight, bud. Alright, before we get too carried away on that, we will try and finish the bottom up. And what do you think, Bear? What do you think? Yeah? Alright, bottom is snug. Push the top down just a little bit. those are nice and snug. Those aren't moving. And this is nice and tight. It's not moving. There's our blank off plug in here. All right. Oh, there we go. And then we will put our little cover on, which covers all those little gaskets. And we will find some screws to fit in those holes, and that's pretty much done. There we go. That is pretty much done. Alright, just gotta stick some screws in here. Of course, the true nature of my projects, I lost the screws that came with it, I guess. So we picked up just a few different size screws. 10s, 12s, and 1/4 inches. And that one's tight. Not this one. That one just goes. No resistance whatsoever on that one. Alright, see what we have at this size. Okay, well, the small one isn't making it tighter at all. I don't have anything even remotely close that would fit. So, I can't guarantee that getting a longer one from the store would fit, because that hole just seems a little larger. I think this one will fit if I can get it to drop in that hole, which it won't. And man, the wind is picking up, and it is really cold, and I just want to get this done. So, the fine line between madness and genius. What if we just heat this up with a torch, get it nice and hot, and then it only needs like a millimeter maybe of clearance. I don't know if it's actually a millimeter because I'm not Canadian, but a hair's breadth. A hair's breadth is what I am looking for. Alright, let's start to turn a dull gray color, which means it is scientifically really hot. And whoa, let's see. We can shoot it there. Oh yes. Alright, I may have mentioned this before. I'm using these Kenway submersible LED trailer lights. These are from Tractor Supply. Here's one that's open. Comes with your plug, which is removable, your light, and your grommet, which is also removable. I've used these before, they're okay. You can replace these at like any truck stop. Tractor Supply sells them. They're like 10 bucks each at Harbor Freight, $17-ish at Tractor Supply. And then I picked up these pair of plates like a long time ago. As you can see from the holes, they've had a couple other projects. I think when I got them, they originally bent to a right angle to bolt up to something, but I don't remember. So these have holes drilled in them because they're for what is called flange mount lights, which are not as common as these. These are called grommet mount. If you're trying to find these on like Amazon or something. And depending on how your grommet is made, sometimes they don't fit these quite as well. But I was playing with this earlier, and they look like they're gonna be just fine. Yeah, that looks perfect. So you push these through past that little groove. That's what holds it retains your light. And then when your light snaps in, which it can go in from either side, these ones look like they're set up to push in from behind, but a lot of them go in easier from the front because they have this lip in the back. It doesn't matter. They're hard to work with because they're so cold right now. That's your plug that just pulls out. It's got 3 pins: ground, stop, turn, and your tail. Your stop and turn together because the trailer lights. Anyway, I may have to take these inside and let them warm up. It's like 30 degrees out right now, but they roll in and they pop in place. Alright guys, so I took these lights inside in the heat. I got them all popped in completely. They actually have this second rubber lip that has to seat. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to cut off these existing incandescents zip, and we're going to figure out exactly where these need to be for the best visibility, which it looks like we actually have to cut this up pretty high. So let's get the zipping. All right, let me show you guys what I'm working with here. So this is your factory light, and as you can see, it's really thick. So it was welded to this bracket right here, as you can see, and that actually spaced the lens of the light off far enough that if you looked at it from the back here, let's find that light, so you'd be like an inch back from the hole. That's gone. Now these new lights are super thin, so they don't have that, they're not going to be spaced that far forward. So if I were to take this and mount it where that light was, and you look at it from behind, I'm not sure if you can tell, the GoPro's small enough I can fit it in there. It's really far back, so if you're at any angle at all like this, you can see the light basically disappears. I don't think that's going to be okay. So I need it more like here. But in order to get it there, if you see that gap, I'm going to have to do something to space that off. And I think, because of the way these are built, that it may be easier to tack weld something to this and tack it in place than to try and bend this or whatever, because that's actually a nice welding surface if I could just get it further forward. So I may just cut the existing bracket out completely and tack something a little closer. I'm not going to reuse that just because it's such crappy metal. I think that's the plan. We'll get to work on it. Alright guys, here is the passenger side in the books. Get my welding helmet off because it's smacking against the top of the trailer there. I'm packing snow around this to try and keep it from melting that rubber donut just much. I did not want to have to get these in place once they were welded in, but you can see I kind of tacked that in. Pack snow around it. It is quite a bit, if you can see up there, it's quite a bit forward from the original mounts. But then if we come around to the back, it more or less lines up with that hole much better now. Better visibility from the sides. Now all I gotta do is finish the other side. Alright, here we are, the side's done. Pack some snow in around that again. This weld ain't too bad looking. And this is in here, and the way I like about these, they're flexible enough that you could pry this away if you need a little room to change that light in the future. These LED lights should be good for the life of this trailer, but you know how that goes. Alright guys, that's it for the wiring. The only thing that I left, if you take a look here, everything should be wired correctly. If you've been paying attention, I have been stripping these wires, soldering them together, using a crimp cap on them, and then I am heat shrinking over the cap and then heat shrinking over the back, because the heat shrinking to go over the cap is too big to shrink down to the diameter of the wire. As you can see, it's going to connect them via the solder. You're going to crimp the cap over them. That both solders them and keeps them together. And then the heat shrink waterproofs it completely. There's no way water could get down into that. And it also helps keep the wires together. For the junctions that only use 2 wires like this one, I am using these solder connectors. I've used these on other trailer projects. They're basically a tube of heat shrink, and they have solder in the middle. And as you heat them up, they melt and the solder flows over your joint. So it's a soldered heat shrink joint with a lot less mess than having to do it normally. I did wire in these pigtails here. That's just a running light and a ground. That is just in case I want to run some kind of marker light on the edge here, because you will not be able to see these taillights are recessed. You will not be able to see this from the side, so I'll probably have to run some kind of marker light here. What's up guys? It's a new day, doing some more work on the dump trailer. I had mentioned in a previous video that I left some parking light and ground pigtails on my wiring harness to add some marker lights on the edge of this, just because those other lights are hidden. And I was digging through my shop, and these are some of the different lights that I have, just a bunch of laying around. I have boxes and boxes of trailer lights. So these are 2.5 inch, I think is what they're considered. These are what you find on like semi trucks, and they're really big. And they're nice because you can see them really far, and you can replace them at a truck stop, but there's really nowhere good to put them that they'd be visible. And then I have a bunch of these little ones. I don't remember what I bought these for, but I have like a dozen of them. So I must have bought them for a project and never used them. And they're nice, and I could actually French them inside this channel, which would look really clean. But they're so small, I just don't know if they'd be bright enough. So then I have a couple of these. These are like the big brother to those little ones. And I don't have anywhere I can easily mount them. They already have these nice bullet ends on them. But what I did find looking through my scraps pile is I have this tubing. And it's not exact, but it's really, really close. So I may be able to put these on top of the heater, or just trim them with a razor or something, just to take a teeny bit of material off and push those in. So then I can cut this pipe and weld it, cut a little section off and weld it back in here somewhere, and it'll protect those, and it'll look nice. Alright, so I'm getting ready to mount my marker lights, and I've decided I'm going to mount them on a piece of pipe down here. That will also serve as the bottom of this fender. Any fender that protrudes below that is just going to get cut off. But I need to make a hole in this to run my wiring through. The problem with that is I have that tail light right back there, and I don't want to melt it. So I'm going to have to find something to use a heat shield, and I'm going to use my torch just to blast a hole in that real quick for my wiring to run through. Alright, just finished up this side, so that's what that all looks like. It's zip tied up out of the way. That's my lead hanging down from my turn signal. There's the middle all finished up. I went ahead and wired that brake line in that way because I was feeling lazy. I don't know what the condition of these brakes are, but the wiring on them actually looks pretty good. All right, just a front to back walk around. We got our trailer plug run to our junction box. Junction box is intercepted by our breakaway. The wires run inside here. I completely redid the wiring on this. I didn't film any of that. I taped those connectors, kept popping off the top of the dump solenoid. This could be tidied up a little with some split loom, but since it's all inside that box, I'm not worried about getting caught on anything. This is all the slack for the remote control. I put new battery terminals on the Napa battery. I also have a lid for that, just in case you ever drop the tool in here, that it wouldn't span the gap there. I'm gonna put that lid on in just a second. So then our wiring runs down through our split loom, through our rigid conduit, which I actually started painting. I zip tied our hydraulic line up and out of the way, and I think I'm just going to leave those tails on the zip ties so that they don't get sharp if I need to get back down in there. Through our conduit, we've got all this split loom back in here like I showed you before, so it's pretty much all neat and tidy. And when you are outside the trailer, you're not looking underneath of it, as you can see, it just looks nice and neat, so that's a good look, and it also makes it much easier to work on everything. We have all the rear lights. They look nice. This ID bar, it has clear lights here that I didn't wire up to anything. I thought about wiring in the parking lights and putting a switch on it. That way if I ever needed working lights or something back here, I could flip a switch. I haven't done that yet, but as you can see, both sides work. I don't actually have it hooked up to the truck. And I'm gonna hit my 4-ways. Alright, 4-ways are on. So brake lights work because your 4-ways work off of the brake light signal. And then we will verify turn signal operation. All right, left-hand turn. I can already see it blinking back here. So left-hand turn is right. It'd be nice to have a helper so I don't have to run back and forth. Right-hand turn. And I can already see the reflection in the garage back there. So, all right. Lights are wired up. Lights work great. Marker lights are installed. All the split loom is done, so all the wiring is done. So this is the part of the video where I always tell you thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you for liking my video, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love the stuff that I do, and it makes me happy that you guys love it too. So I've got plenty more projects to work on. Stay tuned. Probably going to get into something else tomorrow, a whole other project. So thank you again, and I will see you guys on the next video.